Welcome to episode 40 of Behind the Shield. Today we talk to Middle Atlantic Conference Executive Director Megan Morrison. Hello again, everybody. Scott Geis joining you for another episode of Behind the Shield. Today we have a very special guest that Megan talks to us about her upbringing in athletics, what caused her to want to be involved as an athletic administrator, her experiences athletically, and also what she sees moving forward for the MAC. So after this commercial break, Megan Morrison.
At York College, we are proud of the fact that we have over 30 cultures and 30 countries represented among our campus community. We not only are proud of that fact, we celebrate the unique perspectives and differences that each and every person on this campus brings to us. So on behalf of all of us at York College, I want you to know that you are welcomed here.
Tu eres bienvenido aquí. Vous êtes bien reçu ici. You're very welcome here.
You are welcome here.
You are welcome here.
Você está bem-vindo aqui.
You are welcome here.
You are welcome here. You are welcome here.
You're welcome here.
معكم رقية آل الشيخ من كلية يورك في بنسلفانيا. أنتم مرحب بكم هنا. We are welcome.
From day one at York College of Pennsylvania, you are welcome here.
Welcome to episode 40 of Behind the Shield. Today, a very special guest, the Executive Director of the Middle Atlantic Conference, Megan Morrison. Megan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Scott. Happy to be here.
So we'll start out, tell the audience, because they're not as familiar with the MAC with us just joining this year and you being new, tell us a little bit about your path to get to the MAC and some of your experiences in intercollegiate athletics.
Yeah, so it really started, I found my way to a graduate school program in sport management, which, you know, growing up in tiny town in Vermont, I didn't even know such a thing existed. And I just enjoyed that. Like, I can learn and study sports. This is fantastic. And didn't really know going in what I was going to do with that. But one of the principles of that program, it was at Florida State, was to volunteer in the athletics department. And I did. I took every opportunity that I could. I timed at swimming events. I, gave water bottles to camera people at football games. Like, I did whatever I could. And just to see the breadth of what goes on in a program that big was just awesome to me. And I was like, I think I like this. And I obviously had playing experience in college, but at such a different level. And I ended up taking an NCAA compliance class with one of the associate ADs there, and I just loved it. It was like a puzzle. I felt like we were detectives, and I thought that was really cool. And so I followed that. I ended up being a GA for him and just decided that's what I wanted to try to do. But then decided that I knew philosophically that kind of school wasn't quite the right fit for me, that I wanted something probably a little smaller, probably something a little more academic oriented. And ended up finding my way to the Ivy League office and really started out fresh there and was under some fantastic tutelage there. Loved working at the conference, getting to work with different constituents. And, I say this to people all the time, being in compliance at the conference office is very different than on campus. So you're not the one that has to say no to the coaches straight to their faces. But I loved helping our schools, and I wanted to help them achieve as much as they could on their own campuses, and that was my philosophy. I really wasn't looking to move away from the Ivy League or even Division I necessarily, but the opportunity presented itself, and I coming from Division III and has a very similar philosophy overall to the Ivy League. And so I thought I would give it a shot and at least see what it was about. And just going through the interview process, it just felt like the right fit for me.
How important for you is it to be a role model to young women? Obviously, women in sport has just exploded thanks to Title IX. You see, I comment all the time, our women's athletic teams are so much better in terms of skill and ability. And now all these young women are starting to move into roles within intercollegiate athletics. How important is that for you to serve as a role model, not only to student athletes, but also to young women who are interested in getting involved in intercollegiate athletics?
Yeah, it means a lot to me at the core to support young women in a field. I haven't been in that long, but 15, 16 years, looked a lot different then. And I was lucky that I had some women who had a lot of experience, who were willing to bring me along and introduce me to other women. And it's really true that when you see, someone like you in a position that's so far, 10 steps removed from where you are starting off, that you really think, oh, I could get there too. So I think it's important to show that and to help young women make connections across the industry, whether it's within their specific field of interest or something entirely outside. It's a small industry, but at the same time, it's growing all the time too. So yeah, it's definitely an important part of my career since the beginning, to just be involved with other women, lift other people up as you go through the ranks.
One of the things that you've instituted in the MAC in the time that you've been there is the student athlete wellness. We've had some panels with mental health, with other aspects of being a student athlete away from the field that help them. Why is that so important to you, especially in today's day and age, to be able to bring it out and address it and talk about it on the conference level that hopefully goes from the conference level to the institutional level and then down to a team level? Why is that so important to you?
Yeah, I think it's important to me because, it's serving the missions of all our institutions collectively. The mission is to help these young people develop emotionally, socially, physically, academically. And anything we can do to support that mission only benefits all of our institutions. And there's power in numbers when you go across. And it's also interesting, many campuses, you're kind of in the bubble of your own campus. And in a way, facilitating interaction on a conference level can really help people see new perspectives or meet new people, to really foster that development of our students. We want, that's such an important generation, and to think that we can help empower them beyond what they're going to accomplish on the field. I think that's important to all our schools. And so it's important to us as the conference to see how we can help facilitate that as well.
Do you take some of the experiences that you had as a student athlete and say, how can we get them better? Obviously you went to a school in the NESCAC and it's different than the MAC, but what your experiences were as a 3-sport athlete back in college, do you kind of take that over as your role in an administrator of kind of saying, hey, these were things I wish we would have had, and try to move forward with some of that stuff?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think my years at Bowdoin were probably more formative than I certainly knew at the time. Probably why I ended up in the Ivy League philosophically is I'm not sure I even knew the term student athlete when I was in college, because I was just a student that played sports. That's just what I did in my free time. Other people did other things. And so there wasn't that real separation that can occur. And I think that's what's beautiful about Division III in particular. So yeah, I carry that forward. And in terms of particular experiences, sure, there's, in a division where we're trying to do the most we can with limited resources, we always want to try to be creative. I had coaches when I was in college in sports that were coaching that sport for the first time, as an assistant coach. And, it's those things that I think over time has changed for sure. But anything we can do to help our schools provide the best experience, which means, coaches that can dedicate full time if we can do that, or providing an opportunity to have an assistant coach, even if it's part-time. All of that only helps those students grow.
So we're going to switch directions a little bit. You take over a new position at the start of a pandemic. We haven't played a single sport yet under you being the executive director. What has it been like for you? You probably had to deal with a lot of things that you never would have expected to have to deal with in your first 2 months on the job. What has it been like to be able to have to deal with that stuff? Is it, is it really proving that adaptability may be the most important thing that you have early on in your tenure?
100%. It has been a wild ride, and I still haven't met my staff in person. You know, it's crazy to me that my 4th day on the job, we had a president's meeting to decide, you know, what we should do in the fall. So it was like, you know, a ton of bricks just coming down, but it was, in a way, no one knew what they were doing. So it wasn't like I was in that way at a super disadvantage other than not knowing people. I think that was the hardest part, is trying immediately to walk in the Zoom room, not even the door, and build trust. Because, you know, I want to convey the right messages between our constituent groups and support the athletics directors and fight for them in the room with the presidents. But none of them, you know, except for the ones on the search committee, have ever met me in person. So I think that was the biggest challenge. And in a way, it's also been the biggest blessing, because I'm meeting all these people, and we've been having more athletics directors meetings and more presidents meetings than we ever would have under normal circumstances. So in a way, I am meeting these people and getting to know them, albeit virtually, probably more so than I would, you know, under normal circumstances, maybe seeing them a couple times a year at meetings and visiting a campus for a competition, which looks, you know, it's a different kind of conversation than weekly trying to get a flavor of where people are and what their campus is like and tendencies. And so it's been a blessing in disguise as well.
It almost sounds like relationship building, like on speed. Like you have to be able to have an idea of what's important to certain groups and to be able to kind of go in between, which I think would be a challenge. I would guess that would probably be pretty fair to say.
Yeah. And I think I've tried, and someone I think gave me this advice in the beginning, is be much more intentional about, don't shoot the email back, call them. Because I just, you know, when you get emails back and forth, there's tones, there's underlying sarcasm that maybe they don't know that I am a sarcastic person. And so I've really tried to, you know, make more phone calls, be more intentional about those touch points when they become available, knowing that everyone on campus, certainly presidents, certainly athletics directors, are overwhelmed, overworked, and, you know, just almost, I don't want to say deflated in a way, but this has gone on so long now, and the disappointment that they know they share with the coaches and the athletes and the parents, and, you know, and to not know when it's going to be over. It's been really hard. And, you know, someone said to me that this is a tunnel like other tough times, and there'll be an end. And, you know, looking back in the grand scheme of things, it will be a blip on the radar at some point. But it's not now, and we can't see the end. And it actually, it brought to mind, you know, when you have young babies and you think you're never going to sleep through the night again, right? And so it's sort of like that, like we can't see the end, but we know it'll be there.
The next thing you know, they're 17 and they're a senior.
That's right.
Like, what happened? No, I think it's going to be, you know, it will come to an end eventually, and I think we're all there. But you know, the impact that it makes on our kids, I think, is one of the tough things for everybody. You see that the college experience now is not what certainly not what we're used to, but certainly not even what they were used to a year ago, which I think is really tough for kids. I personally can't wait for you to be able to preside over your first championship. I hope that's sooner than later, but you never know. What is one thing that surprised you about the MAC coming in? You know, you're at the Ivy League, you're, you know, geographically not far away, but, you know, the Ivy League to the MAC, it's two different divisions, two different operations. What are some of the things that surprised you about the MAC coming in as a newcomer?
I think the first thing, and, you know, anytime you're at a conference office, sometimes it feels like we're herding cats. Right. Because everyone's sort of going their own direction, and, you know, it's our job to facilitate all that and try to come to a common space. And so I expected that, but I really wasn't sure with 18 schools what that was going to look like. It was hard enough with 8 in the Ivy League. So I wasn't sure how that was going to play out or what that was going to look like. But I I mean, the people I've met here and our athletics directors, even up to our presidents, are so fantastic, and they feel a sense of community that I didn't expect. And they really are proud to be in the MAC and want to work collectively and want to have the best interests of the conference at heart. And I think, and that's been fantastic. And that's, really what's gotten me through the first 3 and 4 months on the job, is knowing that our athletics directors trust each other and are candid with each other and can have open conversations. And even though it's, 18 schools, which is a lot to manage, otherwise I continue to be impressed with the amount of engagement, and, obviously these are rare circumstances, but the amount of effort and engagement that our schools are exhibiting to keep students involved, engaged, again, go above and beyond in facilitating conversations around racial justice and just every topic that's so important that we don't want to get lost just because we're in a pandemic, and that our schools are really intentional about keeping that training going and engaging their students. And, even with fewer resources and people on furlough. And so, I mean, that's one of the reasons, as I said before, we stepped in to try to help with that. But I think that's been a welcomed surprise that I just didn't know existed.
Do you think the general tone of things, like athletically, of students being more engaged in social issues, do you think that's changed significantly just within the last couple months? And do you see that as a change that's going to continue, that kids are going to be more invested and more engaged in social issues maybe than they've been in the past?
Yeah, and I think it really begins with the NCAA's philosophy overall. They really have changed over the past 4 or 5 years to a much more student-centric way of governing, and that the student voice is in more places in the governance structure than ever before. And that trickles down. It trickles down to conferences and it trickles down to institutions. So I think that's one piece of it. And then only, I think, bolstered by this interesting time of a lack of competition, and how can we keep students, and let's take this to the next level. And the engagement we saw across our conference in inciting students to sign up to vote was incredible. And I think we've seen that across the NCAA and across our country. But I think in particular, this generation of students and this age of college students, they're primed to get involved in issues in a way that I haven't seen before. So I hope we can continue to foster that.
What is one thing that you'd like to see over the next couple of years in terms of initiatives for the MAC? What are some of the things that, or maybe 1 or 2 things only, that you would like to see the conference do for the benefit of our student athletes and their institutions?
That's a really good question. I think I'll just sort of along the lines of the last topic we were talking about, is I want to continue to empower our students to be engaged, to affect social change, to be involved in policy making decisions at the conference level, at the campus level, really take control of the experience that they want to have in college. I think helping students step into that power only serves them when they graduate and go on to have careers and do things outside of, their college bubble.
So one thing about student athletes, I know personally, I love to have student athletes work in my office, because I know, 1, they understand it a little bit better, and 2, they're just really hard workers most of the time. What are some of the things that you hope that generally student athletes, when they're done with their experience, when they're done playing their sport, what are some of the things you feel they carry over into their professional lives and their professional careers?
Yeah, I've always felt very strongly that athletics builds so much of a personal foundation, everything in every aspect, from emotional regulation, taking the losses and celebrating the wins in the right way, and all the way to, obviously dedication to your work and a work ethic. You have to have that to be a student athlete and to be successful, and that carries forward. And I think socially too, being a part of a team in a lot of ways and solving problems within that team to make the team better. It's invaluable as you go into business or life with a partner or anything else. So I think it's sort of endless. But there's so much from athletics that really can propel students to succeed in their professional lives.
Well, Megan, thank you very much for joining us. It was from one newbie to another. It was great to have you on the show, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that. And we look forward to getting the opportunity to meet you. So when you're here, you'll get a full campus tour, of course. But we look forward to getting an opportunity to meet in person, and we thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Scott. And I do. I look forward to the day I can come see you all. Absolutely.
It is going to be a wonderful day, and hopefully it's much sooner than later.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You've probably heard a lot about changes on campus, about how classes will look a little different, or how the dining hall won't be set up like it was last year. You may have heard we'll be living with a new normal. But the truth is, at York College of Pennsylvania, normal has never been our thing. If by normal you mean predictable, usual, commonplace, average, that's not us. Our normal is extraordinary, exceptional, remarkable. Our normal is about taking responsibility, thinking of others, and treating people with respect. Here, normal means being compassionate. It means protecting the person next to us to ensure safety and good health for all of us, because we know we're in this together. For us, wearing masks and social distancing aren't really a new normal. They're just another example of what's always been important to us. Joining efforts to find real solutions to achieve our goals, to help our community thrive, and to show that we care. That's not a new normal. That's our normal, and we are grateful that you're a part of it. Welcome home, Spartans.
We want to thank Megan for taking time out of her schedule to join us. Certainly great to get a chance to kind of meet and get to know her. Looking forward to her leadership in the MAC, and certainly looking forward to being members of the MAC once the seasons finally get underway, whenever that may be. We're looking forward to some great competition in the Middle Atlantic Conference. So thanks for joining us again. Until the next episode, stay safe, stay healthy, and go Spartans.